All right, yeah. So let's go over the economy now. So this is the last thing I want to touch on. This is the main thing on. I want to throw my hat in the ring on this specifically because I know that there's going to be an inevitable public perception change when Donald Trump takes office. The day he takes office, the economy won't get any better, but public perception of how the economy is doing is going to immediately overnight switch. And y'all quote me on that. I promise. Look into it as soon as he takes office, and I'm standing on that. It will be the case. You know, if it's not, I will say that. If it's not, I will eat my words. But I'm confident. I'm super confident because it happened last time. Granted, we had COVID, but COVID didn't even ramp up till about April, right? Wasn't even a mass pandemic yet until about March, April. And by January, the consumer confidence index is already way down. By the end of January, I should say, by going into February. But yeah, so let's just go ahead and go over these real quick. So I've got a couple different metrics here that I want to go over to give us an overview of the economy real quick. My thesis is that the economy is not that bad right now. Public perception might be bad, but that's not always aligned. They're definitely separated. They can be, you know, they can align, but they can also be separated. And I think at the very moment they are significantly separated, and I hope that I can give evidence of that with the following statistics. Yeah, so I guess let's just hop straight in. So first thing I've got up here is the GDP, which stands for Gross Domestic Product. It is just a measurement, a rough measurement of how much product an economy produces, right? Your gross, domestic, meaning gross is total, like not accounting for whatever. I think gross is basically just short or another word for total. Someone correct me if I'm wrong, but domestic means obviously in the U.S. produced domestically, and then products are obviously goods. Not talking about services. The service industry is separate from this. Maybe I should look up some stats on the service industry since he talked about running on no tax on tips. But isn't that already a thing in majority states? Like I'm sure there's states out there that tax tips, right? It's got to be like or Las Vegas. That's just crazy. You can make bank working at service, right? But yeah. So let's just go ahead and get it out. Enough messing around. So GDP in 2016, right? So let's actually go. Let's do 2004. From 2004, all right. So Obama takes office here, right? Or no, I guess it would be like between here and here, and we have a little bit of dip, right, because of the housing market crash, and then trends level out and continue up and up and up, and then when Trump takes office, we actually slow the progression. This is an important thing. This is what bothers me so much. I don't care if you vote for Trump because you have certain things you believe in. That doesn't bother me. What bothers me is if you tell me that your main reason for voting for Trump is immigration and the economy, and I can give you valid reasons why he's not going to do that effectively. You know what I'm saying? Like, it's not the fact that you're voting for Trump, it's just the fact that you're saying you're voting for Trump for reasons I don't even think, and I think I can probably make you agree with, he's not even better than Kamala for, right? Compared, if we're obviously taking some trends from the Biden presidency. She's not going to be the same, but we're assuming she's going to have some similar policies and similar ideas, right? So yeah, 2017, 2018, 2019, tax cuts come around 2018, 2019, right? We slow things off. We slow the progression of this nice trend that we've been going. So I just wanted to note in 2016 or 2017 when he takes office, well, at the end of 2016 and in 2017 when he takes office, the economy is great. The economy is great, right? And I think as I touched on earlier, what do you not do under a great economy? Right? You don't deficit spend. You don't deficit spend. And that's what he did here effectively when he did the tax cuts. So anytime we have a budget that the U.S. operates on per year, right? A deficit, spending the deficit means that you use or borrow more money, or I guess you're not borrowing yet. You spend over the deficit, right? You allocate funds over the deficit, and that means those extra that you are behind, you have to borrow. So that adds to the debt, right? So that's what deficit spending means. So you can either deficit spend by spending or by cutting funds, right? Not cutting funds, but like giving tax cuts to the wealthy when they pay obviously a majority of the tax owning a majority of the wealth, as they should, right? We're going to suffer from that. We're not going to have, if we're planning to have a budget for 1 year for a certain tax range that we're expecting, and then we cut taxes, you understand why inherently that is the same thing as deficit spending, effectively, right? It's not directly deficit spending, but it is, right? So let's look, 20, let's go 5 years. Cat, please. I'm busy. See, this is actually what's kind of crazy, is how much the GDP grows under Biden from 2023. Why can I not see past GDP growth rate? Is it 3% per capita? Like that looks good. Why is there no? I guess GDP doesn't take a big hit like other trends would, like inflation and price change and all these other things, right? So GDP, like I said, not the greatest estimate of how strong an economy is. As you can see, it appears that the economy is great right now under Biden, but we know that it's not great under Biden. We know that things aren't as bad as they were, and they're actually good now, but they aren't great. So let's dive a little bit further. This is just quickly the growth rate, by percentage, basically just telling you how much year over year we're growing. Bro, why can't I'm about to buy YouTube Premium for streaming, because holy, these ads are killing me. I don't even know where my YouTube tab is. I'm not going to be able to find this bitch. Oh, there we go. Right. Well, I don't even know where I was at because I got distracted by the ad. But yeah, so GDP growth rate. GDP growth rate. So this is what we see here. This stagnation, the beginning. Stagnation, and then we increase as the actually I'm not even going to try to explain that because I don't know. Oh, maybe we get it because we get this reverberation in Q3, right? Yeah, okay, so that's definitely the case. So anytime you've got a trend like this, you've got a market, a big market specifically. The US economy is massive, right? So anything that's going to have an effect, a big effect, is going to have an equal and opposite effect usually. That's usually how the economy functions. You can look at most the 1920 depression, like you're going to see trends that reverberate like this, that they have an equal and opposite reaction. It's not a law like it is in physics, but it mostly is in large economies. That just tends to be the case. So we see this big drop, and because of this big drop, we see this big gain. Also to do with a little bit of stats, if you drop 28%, it's going to be a lot easier to make a 35% increase over that on the next quarter. But yeah, so this is obviously not sustainable, so it's going to drop back down to normal levels. And you see, it's really only a year that GDP growth rate takes a hit under COVID. As soon as 21 rolls around, we're back basically on pace with where we were. We get some highs as we're still kind of dealing with COVID. But yeah, we get back 4.8% is Trump's maximum GDP growth rate, and we're hitting highs higher than that up here, right? Negative 1% Q1 of 2022. Not sure what that is. I did look into it a little bit. Some people have suggested that it was having to do with Russia and invading Ukraine, and I can understand that intuitively. But I also, the more I think about it, I don't understand exactly how that's messing with our GDP growth rate. I can understand it increasing like consumer good costs, because it would theoretically, like, if we're taxing them on stuff, we're not going to be importing as much stuff from them, and if we make money off their imports, you know what I'm saying? So that makes sense. And I think he started the invasion in February. It was February 24th, 2022. So that's at this time. Maybe that's what it is. Maybe, I don't know. Maybe the oil, maybe not getting oil, and that's why gas prices around this time skyrocketed. Maybe that has something to do with it. I don't know. I'm not an economist. I've been looking into it a little bit now, but I'm not an economist. Damn, I've been live for 45 minutes. I had a little bit of in between, but holy. All right, well, we're almost done with this, so I guess this video is going to be like an hour, and I'm just going to leave it on the channel. That's not going to go great, but hopefully there's nothing in here that's copyright. All right, so inflation rate. This is the big one. Everybody talks about inflation and that it's so bad right now, and I would agree that it is bad, but it's not bad right now. It's bad because it was bad, right? That sounds a little strange to say, but let's just go ahead and get like an effective. Let's go back down to like We'll do 2008 this time, just so we can see the entire. So 3.7%, and we drop off a cliff following the boom after a big recession, right? Like I said, equal opposite reaction. Big peak here, big chasm, big valley here, right? Negative 2.1% compared to 3.7%. So we get that reverberation, and the equal and opposite, it's going to usually be a wave function type deal here. It's going to reverberate again. That's not going to be sustainable, so it's going to level out. We have this big upheaval again once the housing. I think we have a little bit of a housing bubble problem here, don't we? In between 2010 to 2000, like mid 2012, right? I don't know. I'm not super keen. I need to look into the Obama presidency a little bit more. But it looks like if we took an average, I would say our line of best fit is just shy of the 2 mark up through the Trump and Obama presidency. Looks like about 2% inflation rate. Obviously, COVID inflation rate goes down when there's not money moving through the economy. The inflation rate's not going to change much. Inflation doesn't really happen unless you're actually going through goods and having to print money, right? So, yeah. Anyway, 1.6 or 0.6, 1%, 1.3%, 1.4. So inflation rate's not doing bad going into the end of 2020. It's leveled out here, and then inflation is a complicated economic metric because it doesn't react as quickly as the other trends. So you notice the effect of COVID comes way later. And I think also, like I said, I wonder if someone can educate me on this. Does Ukraine actually play a role in this? Because that would make sense to me, where it's this massive, massive increase. I mean, if we go, like the only peak higher is following World War II, the 80s, and 74. And I don't know what was going on here, but like, you know what I'm saying? So this is, do we think Biden's to blame for this? Do you think one man has the power to get inflation ratings this high, even if he wanted to? Imagine he wanted inflation rates as high as possible. Do you genuinely think he gets to 9.1% through normal actions? Or do you think that COVID probably just played a bigger role than people want to give it credit for in the economy? What are you looking at? Listen, you're just distracting. I know you want to sit up here. But yeah, so after the big fall off, we get, so like July 2022, it's absolutely the worst. June actually 9.1 to 8.5, like 8%, 8.5% roughly. And then we start falling off. We start falling off all the way through 2023, or halfway through 2022 to 2023, midway through 2023. We're falling off. Around that July point, we start leveling off, and now September 2024, we are at 2.4%, which I think under the Trump presidency, the lowest point, he wasn't in office here, 1.6. Looks like his lowest inflation rating was 1.6. Yeah, because he took office in January. Yeah, so 1.6 was his lowest, and we're posting 2.4, right? So the economy is getting back on track. Inflation, like I said, it reacts slower, so it's coming down, whereas other statistics, as we're going to see, have come down already. This one is still going to level out a little bit longer. It's going to take a little bit longer to get through. So yeah, so this is next one. This is roughly the same measurement, just done in a different way, right? This is just the producer prices change. And this is just how much the cost of goods has increased over a graph. So we'll do the same thing. We'll go 2008, so I can see the Obama presidency and compare into what Trump did with the economy. So it looks like in 2008, we have obviously the market crash. Once we recover, it looks like we're doing good. Negative 6.86%. Goods dropped 7% in value, which is a good thing, right? That's not a negative. It's in value. But for the consumer, they got 7% cheaper goods. At this point, goods were down 7%. That's not super sustainable, so it's gonna level out. Continues leveling out. Now we're hovering like 1%, even going negative again towards the end of his presidency, going into 2016. We increase a little bit, and then by the time Trump takes office, obviously this isn't his fault. He's just now in office, but the trends do continue this way. Looks like his peak, 3.3% in his presidency, 3.4%, right? producer price change. So not bad, not bad. Obviously, just like inflation, you see the same trend roughly. It's going to be about the same where we have this little stumble and then yeah, not a quite bell graph, or what do you call them things? Bell something. I don't know. Yeah, and then now at 0.3. So notice again, once, because how statistics work, don't take this as like really good, but it's going to be easier to post lower numbers after a big increase like this, right? It still means something, but it means a little bit less than it meant for Trump, because while we're now at the same rates, well, not at the same rate. How does that 2.9 to, that looks higher, but yeah, so we're at like 2.3, 1.9 right now. So we're at, I would say we're doing about as good as we were under Trump pre-COVID for producer prices. Yeah. Let's see. Wages and salary growth is an interesting one, because the idea is inflation is fine. Inflation is an inherent thing to do with running a country, right? Inflation is fine so long as wages roughly track. And that's like the whole thing we're looking for here. So once again, 2008. Oh my God. Wait, I probably should do January, right? Oh, lowercase. January 08. Okay. Yeah, so here, this is where we're really going to see the effect of what happened in 2008, especially on wages and salaries. So remember, inflation fell in this time. No, wait, no, it didn't. Did it? Yeah, roughly. Yeah. Inflation's falling at this point. So you're usually going to have a reaction. So the interesting thing about wages is wages doesn't doesn't affect inflation, but inflation usually affects wages, right? So if inflation is going down, wages are usually going to go down. That's just usually how it goes. If wages go down, inflation doesn't necessarily go down though, right? So we get this big fall off, we get this big chasm up until about like 2010. So it takes about 2 years under Obama for us to recover on this wage. But then we start doing good and the economy's great. 6.04%, posted high in 2011. Then 2012 we posted a high of 7.4%. Looks like if we took an aggregate, considering the low average, I might say like here is a good average, even though that feels even a little bit low, saying like 3% seems to be like the average for the Obama presidency. And then we get Trump taking office here, 3.7, 4.7, 5.7, 5.3, 5%. Notice this is good. I'm not saying Trump had a bad economy. No, I've never in my life said that. What I have said is that, one, Obama did it. Obama was the reason that the economy was so good. He inherited it. Like, you can't argue with me on these statistics. Like, we can read the numbers together. We know that Obama had a great economy. Trump didn't do anything to make his economy good. And that's not something bad about him. He doesn't have to do anything. He can just let it ride. That's fine. If he would have done that, that's fine. But he didn't. He gave tax cuts. And now he added to the deficit when the economy was great. Why? The economy is good for once. Let's just... Hello? Why are we deficit spending? I can't push past that. Obviously, January 6th is my whole big thing, but I'll make a whole video about that. I don't got time to go over that today. I gotta read more and I gotta write more. What was on the middle of saying? All right, so yeah, so obviously we're gonna have this huge layoffs in COVID, economy's shutting down, negative 6% wage growth. Bad. Wage growth though is interesting because when we have unemployment, wages obviously drop. People aren't needed as much, right? Then economy starts opening back up, we need people again, so we do the opposite. So we're really pushing, so wages increase. So that's why you see it really quickly go from April 2020 to December. In these 6-8 months, short months, we have this entire trend reversed basically. 4% to 5.6, so basically fully reversed. 1% we drop back down, and then we go way up as the economy's full back in swing. That's not sustainable. As we've said a bunch of times, that's going to drop. And it does. Takes about, looks like a year to drop back down to normal levels, back to where it was under Trump roughly. Then we teeter, and it looks like they're slightly down right now, but trending towards still here, I don't know, that's like an equal opposite though, so I'd probably have to say like here, like 4% is like the average, maybe even higher. I'm bad at doing these like eyesight averages, but yeah, so this is 30-year mortgage rate. Getting into houses, these are the last two things I want to cover. So let's go ahead and do that. Why is it January 09? Yeah, so anyway, in 2008, what's going on here? Markets, mortgage rates are increasing. They are increasing. We got the housing market problems. We got all this. We know that. 2008 was bad time to buy a house. Then they start falling all the way through Obama's presidency, all the way through. They come back up a little bit because now they're getting to a point where it's a little too low, right, for the economy. So it's not going to be able to function as well like that. So it kind of wants to push it back up. It does. It can continue down given certain factors, but the economy wasn't set up for it to continue trending down at this rate, so it's going to have that reverberation. There's probably some things that come in here to explain it. Like I said, not super well read up on the Obama presidency at the very moment. Decently well read up, but definitely not on all the events that took place and that might affect the economy. So, yeah, so Trump takes office. Looks like we're about 4%, 4.2%, drop down to like 4%. Hovering 4.4, we get up to 4.9. So he posts low, looks like 3.7, somewhere around there. Oh no, this is still his presidency. So 3.5. Yeah, I guess 3.5. Yeah, 3.5 looks to be his low. Obviously, we're gonna have huge. We've had really bad mortgage rate increases over these past couple months. So. Did I just see her try to dive and just not make it? Fuck. What was I even just saying? I was in the middle of saying something. All right, but anyway. All right, so drop. Good. So Biden takes office. Drops. COVID happening. Houses cheap. Houses cheap. Coming back up. And then interest rates go whoop. And I think this has to do with a bit of the inflation rate, because I think interest is another category like inflation where it's going to have a slower reaction. But this one also is a little bit strange too, how it's such a late effect. But again, do we think Biden does this? Do we think Biden is the reason for this? Real quick on the inflation thing too, this is another thing I wanted to ask. Do you think this is Biden? Is this Biden's fault? Honestly, don't answer me. Don't like type below or anything. I don't want to know your answer. What do you think? I want you to think to yourself. Did he cause this? And if you flip these presidencies, does the graph flip? Does the graph change? Does the graph stay the same? What do we think? Right? I think if you're reasonable, I'm not trying to be offensive or anything, but I think if you're reasonable, you would probably say that the graph, if it does change, it's going to change very little, right? I don't think the president has too much power over this stuff. Now, if he goes negatively affecting it, doing a bunch of policy, then sure, but that's not the case with either of those presidents. So I think if we're reasonable, we agree that if we swap the presidents, not much changes. So why are we blaming Biden so much for the economy? And why do we think Kamala is going to do such a bad job with the economy when the economy is good right now? It's not bad. Not bad at all. Right, and then final thing I want to talk about, actually not the final thing, but housing price index, house price index. And this is just the rate at which houses are increasing in price. Obviously, we get some insane rates here. Insane rates. And it starts falling in June, right? You wouldn't know that, but this also basically mirrors the inflation rate, right? We start increasing March 2021. I mean, it's basically verbatim. March 2021 is when we really hit our swing of increasing, right? So it's basically the same as inflation. That's going to just happen. When prices inflate, other goods are going to inflate. A house is a good at the end of the day. Therefore, the price of it increases. Same with the producer prices change. Like, that's just how that works. The interesting little dip here, though, I want to maybe look into that a little bit, why it goes, that little dip. But yeah, now it's falling, hitting lows we've never even hit under Trump. Again, the house is falling compared to this is not crazy. Like, you kind of expect the numbers to come down. That doesn't explain everything, so this is still a good statistic, but yeah, so this isn't sustainable. It's going to come up, and then it's going to tear its way down. We're expecting probably to see another come up a little bit, which is sucks to say because houses are actually increasing at a rate lower than they had the entire Trump presidency, so that sucks, but that's probably what's going to happen with the trend, so we'll keep an eye on that, right? All right, so now final thing I want to talk about is the Michigan consumer sentiment. Now, I don't know if this is the same thing as the CCI, the Consumer Confidence Index, but I'm pretty sure I looked up CCI index year over year, and this was like the top result. So I believe this is either the same measurement or a different name or a slightly different measurement as the consumer report or whatever it is, right? So yeah, so 100 is optimistic, above 100 is optimistic, below 100 is negative, pessimistic about the economy. We're usually always going to trend negative. That's just how economies work. No one's super optimistic about the economy ever unless we're booming, like to a point where you cannot deny it, you know? So looks like under Obama, this is such a wishy-washy graph, and this is such a hard thing to take any meaningful thing from, but I just kind of wanted to show how while consumer sentiment has increased over the past year, it is still massively below where we were here, despite the economy currently being about where we were here, right? So while I don't expect it to be here because we're still dealing with the ramifications of COVID, and obviously you see that it takes that dip, it still has that trend. I don't expect it to be there, but I would expect, like, based on the economy, if we're looking at it, I would expect 85. And like I said, I know public sentiment's going to flip the day Trump takes office, that the economy is so good now and he fixed it and everything like this, or I might be a little bit facetious there, but that's probably going to be true. It's probably going to have, this graph is probably going to look different once it updates for 2025. So I guess we'll see that. That's why I wanted to get this video out. I just wanted to get it out there that, yeah, I think that's going to happen, and the economy is good right now. And so if you ran on, or if you voted for Trump on immigration or the economy, I'm not sure why, and I would love to chat with you about it. But yeah, that's pretty much all I wanted to go over. I've been live for exactly an hour and 3 minutes, so I think I'm going to cut it there, save the VOD, and then re-upload it, so we'll have all this. Hoping to do more of these, like I said. I appreciate everybody that stopped by. Obviously, I'm not going to have more than 2 people a day, but yeah, I appreciate everybody that tuned in and seen what was going on. So yeah, I will see y'all